ICAZ, covering their winter school, and also courtesy of Pilsner. Cheers. We've got Anesu here, a friend of ours who is the founder and CEO of the Chartered Accountants Academy, and we're just going to have a conversation about what's happening in the profession of accounting and the kind of work that we're doing here at the winter school and what that means for the profession and for the country. So maybe you can just talk us through a little bit of what made you found the Chartered Accountants Academy. What does it do, and how did you end up birthing this company?
Thank you. Thank you, Rufaro. So just a point of correction. The group CEO of Dossier Holdings. CAA has got its own managing director.
Okay,
yes,
fantastic.
Yes. I think the founding of CAA, which is what we call our flagship, is out of what I call purpose finding need. I was lucky to identify my purpose in life, which is to educate others to achieve their greatest potential. And there was a need in that space, which also happened to be my profession. So it was that coincidence, which even today I sit here and say, I don't work, I'm simply living my purpose. So I think that's what caused it. But to go then specific from an external point of view, what was the need? The need was the training of chartered accountants capacity had not been built in Zimbabwe. It was being done through UNISA, if you remember.
Yep, for sure.
And the pass rates were so bad. Okay, 300 students, 10%, 30 students, the reinvestment, the money was going all outside. So I happened to have studied in South Africa. I belong to what they call the Forte program, where I studied. I saw how it worked, how they structured those things. I participated, I helped the university get its own accreditation there. And it made sense for me to come back and join ICAZ. I met them at when they were setting up the South African chapter in 2009, and I was just about to qualify. And when they talked to this challenge, I chose to come back to deliver because it fulfills my purpose and there was real need.
So I find that quite interesting because I personally am a beneficiary of the UNISA model, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not current at the moment, but my understanding is that the audit firms have basically ditched the UNISA model, and they just take on graduates. They're not taking on youngsters straight out of high school anymore. Is that correct? Is that how it's currently working?
Oh, I would say we did put the whole thing on its upside down.
Okay.
Because the model was you would get a contract. If you get attachment, then you get a contract. And then they'll put you on the UNISA, what do you call it, that degree, the big compt.
The BCompt, yeah, for sure.
But we then came through and did a full-time program. So somebody can then learn full-time and go to the firm when they've got their CTA.
Yeah, when they've got their honors degree in accounting.
Exactly.
So for the benefit of the audience and Ranga as well, so the way the audit firms work, the pipeline that produced chartered accountants worked was that there were two paths. So the first path is that you go to university and you get a degree in accounting.
Yeah.
And then you are hired by an accounting firm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's not just audit firms.
That's top.
So I think 25 years ago it was only audit. Now there's training. They call it top training outside public practice, right? Yeah. Where you can go to a company like Delta or Econet and work in their finance and department and pick up accounting and finance experience, and then you write the exams to become a chartered accountant. Yeah. So back in the day, the other option was that soon after completing your A-levels, you would sign a contract with an audit firm,
Yep.
and then you would enroll with a correspondent university, like UNISA, University of South Africa, which is based in Pretoria, and you would study an accounting degree via correspondence.
Distance.
And while going to work every day as a clerk within the audit firm and actually going out and auditing companies. So you're picking up practical experience every day, and then twice a year you're writing exams to get a degree. And then once you get your degree, you are on the same path as the graduates. So I think at some point, my understanding, I could be wrong, correct me, is that the cost of pushing through these youngsters through UNISA became prohibitive for the audit firms, and they decided that it was just better to take graduates.
So I think there are a number of things. The cost, but remember, Zimbabwe foreign currency remission
became a challenge.
As well. Imagine if you think the one-to-one period, where even right now, where you can't just be able to send.
You can't just wire money.
So that was one challenge. The second challenge is the capacity to support the students. They were learning alone. Like you're saying, correspondence. Correspondence, you are literally learning alone. The capacity, the lecturers and everybody was away. So we then needed to build a capacity locally to take and every day focus on the development of those students. And when that happened, we started having that pipeline coming through. It was also the economic wise, the firms couldn't afford paying the fees, so the graduates started making sense. So when we started producing a full-time graduate who is already done with CTA and no undergrad, it's cheaper.
But what went wrong? Because I remember, because I went through the UNISA program, and we used to do the numbers all the time, and we were pretty sure that the firms were making money off us. And I actually thought it was fantastic because first of all, you're getting a degree, right, that you're not paying for as an individual, right? You're getting this fantastic experience, and you're also getting paid, right? So
wearing a suit
compared to my friends who were going to use it, I was actually more liquid than them. So it was fantastic. And look, I'm removed from that world, but I think that was a great model. And I think, especially from a Zimbabwean perspective, where the number of parents who actually have capacity to put their kids through university and pay for it, right? So, 25 years ago, you got a grant and you didn't have to worry about
school fees
getting an invoice for a semester. But now, everybody's getting an invoice. And the reality of the matter is that we're a poor country. There are lots of people living in poverty. Some people can't afford it.
So that's exactly what happened. Because when that disposable income, imagine the firm. The firm also, if you take you as a business, if you've got your expenses and there's audit fees, where would you cut first?
No, everybody wants to cut the audit fees.
So if you cut the audit fees, it means that they can't pay some of these things. Like then they have to choose parents who can afford to pay for their kids, okay? But then doesn't support inclusion. You and I would not go to school if that's the case. So what we simply then did is we built capacity locally such that a firm can pay in any currency. Because it's now happening here. It's no longer a thing of sending money foreign. But at the same time, the capacity, the lecturers and everybody is here. And we started passing. So we started changing. So we've got the full-time. Then the part-time was still there. It's actually the bigger part where the firms bring. But I would like to surprise you and say the top, as of the numbers today, is almost coming 50-50. It's actually growing so fast than the audit.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, audit is, whereas the business side is growing, the top numbers are actually moving in leaps and bounds to be the biggest place, and those then also get paid for. So they're working and they are coming and learning, but the solution, there's a whole Zimbabwean solution now. So when you went to school, I think you were probably 200, 100 for the whole of Zimbabwe. We're talking about 1,000 now.
But do we need so many bean counters in our country, Ranga?
Well, I think before answering that question, obviously, I'm more biased towards equity, obviously.
I know.
and I wanted to. So I'll talk about whether we need more bean counters a bit later. But I wanted to just pose a question to Anesu here about whether, in your views, the change in the model has improved accessibility. Because, I mean, that time that you're talking about referral, I want to believe that I think being able to be in these top audit firms, it was a pleasure for very few. Mostly former Group A schools, or kids that are coming
connected.
Connected, exactly.
Your father is a CFO or something like that.
Yes, so and so it meant that there was a whole generation of kids that had potential that could not get into these audit firms, and you'd have a situation where families actually. There was actually a continuation of families or cliques that so if one of you is a CA, then it means it becomes easier for you to become CA, notwithstanding maybe the capacity and the capability of individuals. So I'd like to then maybe just get a sense of whether you think this has improved accessibility of this profession to
So remember we said it's only a few who would get contracts. You only get the path when you get an employment contract. So we came and brought in a full-time.
Okay.
Meaning, anyone who says I'm ready, I can go through this.
Even if they don't have a contract with any audit firm.
But they have to write you a check.
Okay, so yes. So we had that, but the issue is when you look at inclusivity, we want to give people a chance, with or without. So those without would probably be taken in the part-time at the firm and be paid by the firm. So we had a part-time, which is big. We then produce the full-time, which says, I'm not sure I can work full-time and study. Let me come and study, and someone pays. So we had firms paying some to come full-time, parents come. So that changed the landscape such that we actually have got more people coming in there. We didn't stop there. We now have what we call a bridging, which I was saying to you from CFA as an ICAZ member. We can now bridge you from whatever. We are bridging marketers, HR, into CA. And the vision is to take the doctor. Think of it, if I take a quantity surveyor, or sorry, a surveyor at a mine, they would probably do a better job in auditing a mine if you convert them as a CA.
True.
For sure.
If I take an engineer, a chemical engineer, and I take them to Unilever, they'll be able to do a better job. So we're actually including all those pathways into this whole. So inclusivity is the biggest. But you then talked about the issue of, do we need so many?
Yes, do we need all these bin counters? Because again, the world has changed. So 25 years ago, if you went to any big company in Zimbabwe, right, and you sat down with the finance director, or today I think it's more fashionable to call them CFOs, and you say, talk to me about your department. How big is it? They would brag about
hundreds.
How many people, because you have data capture clerks, you have credit clerks, you have all these, you have clerical staff, and then you have supervisors, then you have managers, then you have, the senior managers, and then the CFO, right?
So if I were to answer you, I'll answer it in two levels. Do we need so many bin counters? We do. Because if you check right now, you hear that there is not enough accountants. But we have chosen not to answer a Zimbabwean call only. It's a global call. Okay? So we believe that we've got people that have got enough intellectual capacity to serve here. And I think the CEO of ICAZ was presenting that 75% of our output per year go global.
Leave. Yeah, no, that's true.
So in other words, the moment they leave, they're leaving a very big void. Right? So in other words, the story is, do we try to fill this void, or we fill the global void so that we produce enough for the world and the local? Okay? So that's how we're doing. But also on the other side of bin counting, it's saying there's technology that's coming through to do some of the work. So do we need...
Not just some of it, a lot of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can then further deep dive on that.
So I think I would add again and say, I don't believe that the best way would be to create artificial limitations or constraints. It's a skill.
Yeah.
So everyone who wants to acquire this skill must be given an opportunity to acquire it. And you know what? With a skill acquisition, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to apply everything, every kind of skill that you're going to learn.
I like that.
So even if someone was to choose to say, you know what, my whole life I don't want to be a bean counter, but they've learned some accounting and they know everything that is needed in audit, they end up doing some other thing. Then that's okay.
Like Rufaro.
Yes, like him. And
I never identified it as a bean counter.
yes, but you are a bean counter.
You are the best.
Yeah, you did a whole 3 years of apprenticeship, and then you wrote some exams.
Well, it was a bit more than that, but anyway.
Yes.
Look, but
so
here's the thing.
So in that case, you don't have to limit people by just creating some bottlenecks.
Look, I'm a free market guy.
Yes.
So I'm not.
So
I have no interest in
that
creating.
That notion was not motivated by free market.
No. So I'm not saying we should cap the number of people who graduate as CS. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Look, the market is going to tell us.
Yeah. What
what it can absorb, and and it's not up to any of us sitting here to come up with a number. But I was thinking about it philosophically.
Yes,
Right. Where I'm saying, the world has changed so much. So much of what we talk about when we talk about accounting work, when we talk about audit, is now software.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the software every year is getting cheaper, it's getting more sophisticated. Yeah. So that role, and I think before the show started, one of the side chats we were having is I was saying, there's a debate that we're having in Zimbabwe, that I think is quite interesting, where a lot of top leadership in corporate Zimbabwe are chartered accountants, all right? And whenever some of these companies fail, people are quick to point a finger and say, you know what, the problem is you've got an accountant in charge, but this thing is an engineering concern, or it's a technology concern, or it's a telco concern, or whatever it is. And, so, we don't want to get into the rabbit hole of that debate, but for me, one of the things that I think is misunderstood about the chartered accountant qualification is I think that it is much less to do with accounting and numbers, and much more to do with leadership. Right? And I think that the profession does itself a disservice by calling itself
accountants.
Because
I do agree.
Because if you actually look, if you were to sit down with any member of the institute today and ask them, what do you do on most days? From the time you get to the office till the time to leave, right? You would struggle to find the bit of it that is accounting, right? It's leadership, it's decision making, it's analytics, it's all these other things that are not what we would think of as accounting.
So I would like to agree with you and say, when you look at accountants, one thing that makes us come up top is that when we talk about value creation, understanding value. So you can be an engineer, but you may not be able to understand how to create value. And we speak the language of money. After everything is done,
it's about the dollar.
It's about the
teaching,
dollar.
yeah.
And the dollar is what we speak. So yes, I've created this mic, I've created this wine, but how much does it cost? An accountant would get to the bottom of saying, how much does this cost? And if it costs this much, how much do I price? And how much do I conserve? How much do I... Okay, so like you're saying, we then lead in that process of understanding the full organization. Whereas an innovator just understands how the wine or the glass is created, but they don't see the bigger picture. How does HR, how does marketing, how does everything fits in this? And that becomes that leadership that you're talking about. Okay, so the biggest problem we do is we have not told the value, and the name accountant is a misnomer. Okay, and I would like to show you something. Like you said earlier, initially the profession was creating auditors. So everybody was coming from the audit firm.
Yeah.
And then the second step was the top. Then they realize no, many people from the audit are end up in commerce.
Yep.
They then opened commercial entities to be training offices, right? And the exams, the 2 exams, a PP exam for auditors and financial management for. Now we have got what we call assessment of professional competence. Audit is is 1 task out of 9 tasks. So we are no longer producing an auditor, we are producing a business leader. So they talk strategy, they talk governance, tax, ethics, audit, accounting, and they're given all those package of skills for leadership. Okay, so it's no longer the audit. So it evolved over time.
So why are you calling yourselves accountants?
It is what has been recorded as, and we have not gone to challenge it in terms of naming. I did a national research, and I found out that students from primary or secondary school don't take accounting because they think principles of accounting. I'm sure you remember principles of accounting.
Yeah, sure.
That's what they think accountants is all about, because it's called accountants. But we are way more than marketing. We do marketing. I'm sure you did marketing. You did HR, not deep, but just enough to understand the business. We did all that as accountants. But that misnomer of saying accountants still
because I think
So I'll add, I'm not an accountant, but having been in business and corporate for the longest time, I think one big advantage that a typical accountant or accounting department would have is whereas other functions, they are specific.
Yes.
So you're an engineer, maybe you're heading the technical team.
Yes.
Or you're a marketer, you're heading the marketing team, HR and etc. Someone who is sitting in finance is actually looking at all your interests. And whereas others could be driven by other things, for example, an engineer, his passion is this technical ability or whatever. Someone in finance is actually driven by the need to make sure the business is sustainable and is profitable.
Yeah.
So you are looking at every function and how it's actually affecting everything that's happening, and be able to say, this is the source of value.
Yeah.
No, this, if you do this thing this way, no matter how passionate an engineer is about what they are doing, or the HR or marketing person is passionate about doing their marketing and whatever, if it's not adding value, it's not creating value to the business, then maybe it's not worth pursuing.
Yes.
So I guess from that viewpoint, it's understandable why maybe you are talking of accountants as being
but I want to challenge. I like the point that you raised, and I want to push back and present a question to Anesu that I think he's well placed to answer, because if you look at Zimbabwe and South Africa, right, what you're saying is true, right? So you will find a lot of corporate South Africa and a lot of corporate Zimbabwe is led by CAs, right? So it's true in this part of the world, what you're saying, okay? But if we zoom out and we look at things at a global scale, we look at the global Fortune 500, the 500 biggest companies, right? Or S&P 500, like the world's biggest multinationals, right? And you look at their CEOs, the accountant will be a rare creature there, right? You look at their CFOs, right? An accountant, a guy whose primary career and qualification is from the world of audit and accounting, is also a rare creature. The people who you find in those roles, they have they're either from sales or from STEM, and they have MBAs. And the people who are CFOs, it's the same story. They are from STEM, or they've got sales or other underlying qualifications, and then they do an MBA, and then they end up CFO. And then what you'll find is the highest level that a CA or CPA, the American equivalent, will be the guy reporting into the CFO as the chief accounting officer. Yeah. Which is a very
interesting
narrow
perspective.
This guy's actually literally there to put the numbers together. So the question, which is my question, to say, in Zimbabwe and South Africa, in this part of the world, we are saying the best leaders are CAs, right? But on a global scale, they're saying no. That's not true. The best leaders are people with different skills, and accountants should just stick to the knitting.
I like that. Let's check. If you were to Google, who is the number one CA in the world right now, among us, the institute? It's ICAZ, South Africa,
Okay.
beating the whole of the world,
Okay.
Okay.
right? And ICAZ, SAICA, and Namibia have what you call trilateral arrangement. We develop and produce our CAs the same way.
Okay.
Okay, we have the best CAs in the world. That's why an ICAZ CA can be found anywhere. That's why about 75% of them yearly going out.
Okay.
Okay, what is it that we focused on? So we're talking about some of the changing things. Adaptability. So we those are leadership skills which that article program, you would know, you are taken through the paces, and those paces have nothing to do with the numbers. It's character, adaptability, it's thinking, problem solving, and so forth. So each country or each region has a different way of developing. Whilst at the top level, what we call the International Federation of Accountants, they prescribe some sort of what we call a framework which says what should the professional accountant have. But each country, all countries do it differently. And we have the highest sought for because of the rigor that goes in it. So, like we're talking about the world, the changing world, we've decided instead of just using our yesteryear competence framework, we took it and threw it away and said, let's create a new competence framework. What can computers do? Oh, the computers can do that. So we'll teach you what the computers can do, but just to identify and be able to either input or evaluate or review. But we will focus on what computers cannot do. So in the CA 2025 or the CA of the future, we actually went back on the drawing board to redefine what are the key competencies: adaptability, leadership, business acumen, and all that, which actually has nothing to do with the numbers. And on the triangle of qualification, the CA is at a strategic level. And as of today, ICAZ has launched 2 more qualifications below, one for middle, a general accountant, and a technician. So that the CA is strategic, whilst they're supported with other professionals, which has not been there over the years. And CA working with ICAZ has come up with this solution.
So I like what you're saying, and it kind of, so, you know, Ranga brought up this point that I think is quite interesting about inclusion.
Yes.
And I think one of the things about, you know, my suspicion
Yes.
about why what you're saying is correct in terms of SAICA, ICAZ, and
Namibia.
Namibians is because there was something elitist about the culture, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when you sat to be interviewed by one of the big 5 firms or one of these top corporates, they're not just interested in your academic acumen,
Yes.
right? They want to understand. They want to gauge your communication skills.
Yeah.
So okay.
Your network.
You know,
you
at school, were you a prefect? Did you what leadership roles did you have?
Exactly.
What are your other interests apart from just
do you play
studying and
football?
passing exams?
Yes.
Right? Are you an
Rounded
interested
person.
Are you a sophisticated, interesting human being?
Yeah.
Right? These are leadership qualities that they screened for, right? And which is why there was a preponderance of these kids from private schools,
Private schools,
from
yes.
group A schools, because they tend to inculcate
Such.
these traits and groom you to be a certain kind of person, right?
So
which is why people. So
in a way, it's more.
So
an
can this be
exposure.
commoditized, right? That's my question to somebody who's running a business that is churning out these graduates. That, you know, the reason why the special sauce in the ICAZ SAICA
Development model.
member is that they have these leadership traits, right? Over, you know, because I remember, like, you know, the Americans, the Brits, it's all about, you know, just pass these exams.
Yep.
right? Show us that you understand these concepts, and we'll give you
The qualification.
The qualification.
Maybe also as an overlay to his question of whether it can be commoditized, would you say, what have you seen in terms of the quality of the CA after the move from, that kind of model where someone has got exposure, well-spoken, good network, good family, to where you're saying you're opening it up to everyone who wants to study, or maybe they can go through university, which is like your local university are purely academic based. So do you have got 14, 15, like at that time, points, etc.? Has that sort of watered down the quality? Has that improved the quality? Is that an improvement, or people are like, no, the quality of the CA?
So the quality actually improved.
Okay.
Right? If we talk about accounting standards, how many? A handful. When you did.
Yeah,
now there's just like so many. But how it has improved is, let's agree on something. Academic qualification, which is a degree, is different from a professional. Professional qualification, I learn the knowledge, but I go and if I learn what a TB is, I go and create a TB and balance. Actually do a trial balance and record transactions. So
can you believe I used to work with these things?
so there's actually practical.
Yes, you used to have like spreadsheets.
Journals, the big ledger. So you see what they do. So professional, you learn, but you practice. For you to get membership, you have to pass exams and then on the practical.
On the practice side.
On the practical, one thing that a CA brings, which is currency, is trust, the integrity, the ethical oath and discipline that they hold to. And all those are still required. So whatever we are launching, it has got the education and the practical training. You learn from your master. So you did train, and when you are developing others, you then work with them and show them in action, right? So there is for ICAZ, all requires education plus the practical. So it's still the same, and like I'm saying, when earlier we didn't have a lot of uptake of our people into the global arena. Now it's even worse, and nobody comes back. We have not had a complaint. So
well, people aren't coming back because
there's nothing to come back to.
No, but
I wouldn't put it so harsh.
I mean, that's the
recruiters will say. The recruiters will stop.
I think things. Look, it's. I believe in free markets, right? And the reality of the matter is that if you're a youngster, you've just qualified as a chartered accountant, you're 23, 20, 24, you want to see the world, you want to, you're just going to get paid so much more, right? In Europe, in
and
Australia,
the world.
in North America, than you would in Zimbabwe. That's just the reality. And
but it's not a choice. You see, the issue is, ICAZ does what we call MRIs, mutual recognition arrangements.
Yes.
So they go to Australia and New Zealand. They go to who come in and evaluate the adequacy of the ICAZ qualification. Then what happens is they take and test, and then the people says this is a good product. We want more.
Yep.
So it's not like I just take off on a plane. You get the job from here. So if you're a Zimbabwean psyker, the world needs you.
So in that case, why don't you just train more and more of these
That's
people?
the story I'm talking about. That's the story.
Because I mean, it makes sense.
If Brazilians can
I have another
export
question.
footballers, we're going to export accountants.
Yeah. So I have another question, which is adjacent to your business. Maybe it's an opportunity that you've considered. Which is, we had 2 years of COVID.
Well,
and during those 2 years, in the world's infinite wisdom, we had these lockdowns and people worked from home. Yeah.
I like the infinite wisdom, though.
And whether that was, the right course of action or not, we actually learned that remote work works.
Yeah. That's true.
And so perhaps this is the thinking leading into my question, which is, a lot of work done by your profession is desktop work, right?
Can now be done from here.
You know, why, you know, so in India in the 80s did really well with call centers. To what extent is there an opportunity for Zoom to be a hub for that kind of remote work where people download all these numbers, these financials, they analyze them, they form an opinion, and they send the report out, and we actually generate hard currency here.
So that extent is huge, right? And I can tell you, as a business, we are actually currently working with a local BPO. We wouldn't want to. It takes so much to set up that infrastructure for BPO having. So we're actually working with a local BPO. You'll see it very soon in the news.
Yeah.
Where we're actually taking talent to the world.
This one doesn't need a refill.
Yeah. We're actually taking
So
talent.
discriminating.
It's water.
Yeah,
So we're actually taking talent to the world. And it's actually in the cooking as we're speaking.
Fantastic.
Because we want to give chances to two people, those that want to travel, but think of a father or a mother who can't travel, but they can serve from here. So we are developing that, not only for audit, but for all other services, because what has happened is, in the first world out there, the profession is not as attractive because, you know, you work very hard to get it. You work very hard, long hours, and the AMA 2K don't like that. So what we've
No, it's not about AMA 2K, in my opinion. I think it's just a Zimbabwean thing.
Yeah.
I think people work really hard.
Yeah,
The rest of the world. We, because you know, we've been dysfunctional at a certain level, we've lost that work ethic.
No, but in the first world, it's where they are not taking accounting. They are choosing computer engineering or whatever. But accountants are still relevant. So because they are not taking up that, if you check America, just now if you say shortage of accountants in America, they actually don't have accountants.
No.
So we are going to fill that gap either here or send people there.
So I like what you just said, and I want to. It raises a question about the future of the profession, which I find quite interesting, because I'm a student of technology and developments in technology, and one of the things that is very clear in my mind, you know, there's this famous venture capitalist by the name Mark Andreessen, and I think, you know, he made this quote. I can't remember the exact year, but it struck me, and, you know, people reference it all the time. He says, "Look, software is eating the world."
Well,
right? And so the thing about accounting is, you know, it's very rule based. You know, you debit this account, you credit this account. You know, it's the kind of stuff that computers are really good at figuring out.
Can we agree, from what I've talked to you?
Yeah.
But that's the smaller part of accountants, the account that we develop. So I'll tell you, we do tax planning, right? And tax compliance. So the planning is different to compliance.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. We do governance, right? We do strategy. Okay. We do accounting, which is what you're talking, bookkeeping and accounting, and reporting, which is outside. We do audit as well. Over and above that, we've added things like business acumen, we've got ethics. So what you're talking about is the smaller part, which we have agreed to say that which is routine, let it be. So what accountants, if I show you what we call the pathways to accountants, we will now have accountants that are developing those software. So they have to understand, and they go and add and go and develop that software. Imagine who developed Pastel. You can't develop Pastel without an accountant. Those ERPs. So we're actually in the development of those solutions. You need an accountant to be able to be there. But we do much more. At CAA, one of our board members is Prof. Tony Hawkins. He's the chairman of the academic board. When we showed him the future CA syllabus, he says, no, you are now MBA. Because his thought or concept of accounting is that narrow. And
Yeah, but I actually think he said it beautifully and succinctly, because when I think about a Zimbabwean CA or South African CA,
yeah.
I think leadership and the qualification most associated with leadership globally is an MBA.
Yes.
So when you identify,
But
as
we're not
accountants,
the problem is we're not telling it. People will say we call it ourselves our accountants, but it's only when I then open to you the competencies that we are building. Then you realize no, this is, accounting is very small. Do you understand? So, but we still call it accounting.
it's like these guys. They call themselves certified financial analysts.
Yes.
But I think the financial aspect of their analysis is actually is becoming a smaller and smaller part of what they do, because understanding the future outcomes of a business is less to do. Okay, the numbers are important for sure, and they'll always be incredibly important. But I think there's just the skill set that you bring to the table to be a good analyst goes well and truly beyond the numbers. But you call yourselves financial analysts. Yeah. So, but I guess it's historical. These are legacy issues.
Yes. We need to do a lot. One thing so I sit at, I participate at IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants.
So what is International
Federation of Accountants?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And we realize that we are bad at telling our story. Whilst we are accountants, remember accounting is about telling the story.
Yep.
But we are bad at telling their story of who we are and the value that we actually. And remember the discussion that's right now, which says accountants will save the world. We are the ones driving sustainability. We are the ones driving integrated thinking. Where we look at the capitals of a business, social capital. We are now even starting to measure social capital. So your network is an asset. We are even there, but we still call ourselves accountants.
Yeah, I've got a question for a layman.
Yes.
CA, CIMA, ACA, what, and all this.
Okay.
Can you try to put them into some perspective? And
okay, so let's start here. The International Federation of Accountants has got what to call professional accountants rule. It has got 8 standards, from one which is entry requirements. There is CPD, continuous long life learning. There is
CPD conjures up.
So just giving you some practical training, which talks about that you don't need education only, you need the practical training. So there are 7. The main 7 can be done by everybody. The last one, 8, is the audit, which cannot be for everybody. So what has happened is CIMA went and took a portion and they specialized in cost accounting.
okay,
But they take some of that, so they are professional accountants. ACCA structured themselves in such a way they take some of those components, but they are more from a corporate, something like that. If you look at ICAZ, they went all the way to the highest, which is the audit, for years.
okay.
That's why they're the biggest audit providers in Zimbabwe and across the world.
And where does CIS or its successor fit?
So when you look at CIS, if you look at CIS, the CGI from it's traditional. It's not within this main. It's with the secretaries. There's a whole institute in the UK for
Corporate secretaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But what they did, they added accounting. So they then also brought accounting. Right? So it's secretaries that also understand accounts. So that's why it's called CGIA, which is Corporate Governance Accounting Institute. So they brought both. So it's only Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Anywhere else, they are not within the professional accountants realm.
Okay.
In Zimbabwe, they put. So if each institute, you've got the public sector one. So each institute have got some sort of theme which they take from this whole. No one has got the whole.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you are CIMA, you'll be known for costing, and management accounting. Yes, that's what you'll be known for. If you are ICAZ, you'll be known for financial reporting, the leadership, the audit.
Okay.
And the tax. So you're not much known as a cost accountant or management accountant.
So I think we've established how fantastic ICAZ and the CA designation is in terms of what it brings to the table from the technical aspects that you just articulated, as well as leadership. And I'm deliberately prefixing my question with this context, because Ranga and I have this gripe in the Zimbabwean market that we
Lovely.
live and work in, you know. And this gripe is primarily directed at your profession, right? Because we are the consumers of your work, right? So when the companies report and my clients want to understand whether they should be buying a company or selling it, you know, if it's listed on the ZSC, we have to form an opinion,
Yeah.
right, based on the numbers.
So well, this is the value.
Your fraternity produces.
Yeah.
And frankly, over the last few years, those numbers have been gibberish.
No, not over the last few years. For some good time now.
You know, and so I just want to get your sense from somebody who's been at the core face of this, right? So you're involved in producing the future generations of leadership in that space, and you obviously look at these numbers and sit in committees that make decisions about what should be reported and why and how.
So in other words, he's saying, do accountants sleep well after producing these numbers?
So I'd like to tell you a little bit and give you comfort that when I met Ranga and team with ICAZ, my team on the other side, which is TAS, we lead.
Sorry, TAS, what is that?
Training and advisory services.
Okay.
Okay. We serve probably more than 80% of the ZSE.
Okay.
You won't talk about currency in Zimbabwe and not have my team or me on the table. Hyperinflation, we taught and developed the account of hyperinflation. But I want to tell you the story. The story is not about the technical. And I'll put this bluntly and plainly. It is the fear of leading and taking a stand. Which is doing the right thing.
Because it's politically incorrect, or because...
Exactly. Which is doing the right thing versus a few FDs being thrown in jail. So I would rather report one-to-one when in actual fact it doesn't make sense to report one-to-one because it's politically correct. So you see sometimes where laws come with what do you call it, presidential decree or something. So I would say for us, for me, because I've driven this process to a point where I said, because we then lack the courage to stand and say, no, this is the right
But here's the thing. So the way you've characterized doing the right thing is confrontational, as if it's kind of...
It's not confrontational.
As if it might poke, you know...
No, it's not confrontational. I'm sure it's a culture in Zimbabwe where we would like to always be politically correct.
Yes, so what I'm saying is...
What I'm simply saying is, we have a responsibility, isn't it, as a professional, to say, if a politician says, do this, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I hear you, but these are the implications. It should be done this way. If we do it this way, but it's different when you say, oh, that's what they say.
No, I hear you, but I want to push back, and I want, you know, because Ranga and I feel quite strongly about this, because we really struggle to make heads or tails of these numbers, you know, and you know, which is why I call them gibberish.
I'm bitter myself.
So here's the thing, though, right? So there is the decree that's coming from the politicians about how we should report these numbers, and that's a prerogative, okay? But nothing is stopping corporate Zimbabwe, led by the experts, right? To say, you know what, guys, this is what PAB has decreed.
Yes.
This is how the numbers should...
I like that you even know
the
entities involved.
This is how you should present the numbers, right? But for the benefit of the Rangas and Rufaros of this world, who actually use these figures and want to make decisions, we implore everyone to also provide these supplementary numbers in hard currency using this framework and these guidelines so that I can compare company X to company Y to company Z. And the state can't come in and say you're not complying, right? Because you're producing the local currency hyperinflation adjusted numbers, right? So you're just providing this supplementary information that allows us to do our jobs.
So I would like you to look for me on LinkedIn. And you see me talking to the conference that we did with TAS in November last year. We even had PAB, ZSE, and so forth. And if you go and look for what I gave as output for that, which we learned, was that we need supplementary information. But this does not make sense. Okay? But unless there is the willpower to do what is right and not what is politically correct. But the interesting thing that we do is, instead of looking at substance or fair presentation, we look for comparability and say, what did Ranga do? So if now I do different, we are not comparable. At the expense of fair presentation, which says, I gave you these numbers, but in my management accounts, I was not recording this number. I was not looking at this number.
You're not making decisions based on the gibberish that you're giving us.
I was looking at the US dollar value as a constant currency and say, so this is what I may not have functional currency. When you say functional currency, my US dollar are not yet enough, but I'm reporting 60%. So I give you the Zim dollar, but let me give it to you for completeness and understandability in a different constant currency as a supplemental, like I say. So if you look for me, you'll actually find that I actually had that from, okay, and that's why I'm so pained on this.
That all these
we've actually led
big public companies are reporting gibberish.
Yeah, because it just shows.
I refused my own accounts. So got auditors put accounts, and I'm like, I don't know these numbers. Can you please go back and give me something better?
Yep.
Yeah.
So accountants, they just need to appreciate that they're producing these numbers to different stakeholders. So you've got a regulator who says, this is a functional currency and I want these numbers to be in this, and then inflation adjusted and whatever. So this is one stakeholder. Important, he has got the power and the machinery to enforce that. But at the same time, there are other stakeholders that are also important to your business. These are your shareholders. These are your investors. So like what Farah is saying, and maybe you are also concurring, is it's actually possible to achieve the expectations of all the key stakeholders. So provide the regulator with what they want, SIM dollar, inflation adjusted, whatever, but then also appreciate that I've got another stakeholder who also deserves to understand the actual economic value, economic activities underlying the operation of the business.
Can I add a little bit for you? So when we report in terms of international financial reporting standards, the conceptual framework says, I think it's para 10, says these are not for the regulator nor for they are for the primary user, the investor, the lender, and the debtor. Do you understand? It's very clear, right? But remember what I was talking about, being politically correct. Now, when you prepare those numbers, those are for those people. You can then do what we call statutory accounts for statutory purposes, which are legal or country or whatever. Okay?
100%.
If we go back, if you remember, we used to have financial instruments, IS 39, which says, RBZ would say, for the measurement of your credit losses, we use the bezel. But accountants would use IS 39 modeling. So accountants would do reconciliation and say, this is my IS 39 according to what my investors want. But then they do a reconciliation to the statutory, what RBZ. And RBZ is not asking them to change from there. But normally it's our thinking, and I wouldn't say put accountants on the table, on the line, no. When you sit on the board, when you sit with the organizations, are the organizations ready for a full board with all its competencies and everybody to do the right thing? Because let me tell you, part of the things is, if you record in a certain way, it's good for tax. So why should we do the right thing when it's good for tax? Why should we do it when it takes us to do more work? So there's so many reasons why. Okay, but we need money there. If we seem to look like we are doing a little bit different, we want to get that money. So part of it is not about accountants. Okay? Sometimes it's my just feeling for my skin.
Yes.
I've seen one or two people thrown in. Remember the pricing story? Where one or two people were thrown into taken of FDs because the pricing is in, well, they're using a different rate.
Yes, they're using the wrong rate.
So
the
everybody's
wrong
just-
rate.
Yeah, the wrong rate.
Yeah.
So everybody's now kind of afraid to step up and say this is the right rate.
So I love that you bring up the rate, and because one of the controversies and challenges when you put together accounts is you have to on a balance sheet you've got assets, and some of the valuations are judgmental,
Okay.
right? And then you've got an official rate of 13.7,
Yeah.
right? And then you've got a parallel market rate,
Yeah.
which, the last I heard was 21, 22, right? And this is the reality on the ground
Yeah.
that people are interfacing with. So how do you guys how do you resolve this conflict between, what's decreed, what's official,
And what should be.
and the reality, not even what should be. Like,
What's
like
the reality?
if people are actually valuing, if there are transactions happening at a completely different rate, at a materially different rate, how do you resolve those conflicts?
So the conflict is resolved the same way I told you. Who are you reporting to? If you are reporting to an investor, whatever, you go by IFRS, which is not the regulator. And the standards tell you that you test what you call exchangeability. If exchangeability is limited, you estimate. Okay? Because you can't tell me there is a whole list criteria for those that can access currency on the auction market. Let's just go back. Those that can access, if you can't access, how dare you use that rate when you can't access? What is the rate that you are using to access
Day to day,
day to day? Do you understand? So you estimate. So we're saying the moment you assess that the currency lacks exchangeability, you can estimate. But for where you can get on the auction, then there's
Then it's
exchange.
clear, yeah.
Then it's very clear. Do you understand? But then we then go official.
Yeah.
So the standards are very clear and guiding. But what has been the bigger pulling factor for us, or decision factor, is being politically correct.
Yeah, but I think in addition to that, I would say I don't want to say the accountants, but the people who are putting together these accounts, they're also taking advantage of
The loophole.
the loophole to try and present a picture which they want, which I think is beneficial to them, whether from a tax position or so which calls into question, if you want to be straightforward and honest, the ethical issues on their part, because they so it means one would choose an auction rate going back to the auction time, when ordinarily they were actually receiving this whatever receipts using a much higher rate. So assuming someone who is selling and then say, okay, fine, I'm selling, but the conversion rate is actually the official rate. Yet actually on the two, they are converting at a different rate altogether. They know what is correct. So internally, like Rufaro always say, internally it's not like they'll sit in a management meeting, and talk about the auction rate which they are not using. They actually will be talking about the actual economic activity that is taking place. So look, I think you could go on and on about it, but I think if I would to sort of summarize, I would say, I think as a trainer, you've got a lot of work. I don't know whether it's something related to the governance, but also ethical issues as
For
well.
me, it's ethical.
It's
the
ethical.
courage to
Yes.
stand up and do what's right.
Exactly.
Okay, to say and put it there and say that this is the implication. This is what I'm supposed to. Because we talk about protecting public interest.
Exactly.
If I show you, when we said 1-to-1, for me in my books, currency changed on the 5th of May, 2016.
Okay.
That's when currency changed. right? And when it changed 1-to-1, imagine a company from Zimbabwe which would be reporting out there and saying we did US dollar. Let's just take a South African holding company. And we send accounts and say 1-to-1 it's US dollars. That company would take those amounts, multiply by 15 or 18, and say, these are the runs that have been made from Zimbabwe. We come 2019, we say, no, it's not USD. And people are buying shares
In US dollars.
at the back of US dollar.
Exactly, on that
and
basis.
performance in Zimbabwe. Right?
Yeah, I remember seeing some of the SA listed businesses
Exactly.
that have got subsidiary here reporting that this is how much we have made from our Zimbabwean subsidiary.
Bonuses,
Yeah.
things, whatever, being declared.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying this story is emotional for me. Because I've walked, and for me, we are saying we need to lead. It's an ethical issue. It's not about, it's an ethical and a responsibility issue. Our role is to protect public interest. So we should have gone and say, no, this is an issue. Because we identified the currency. We even told the government, no, this is a currency, it's not the US dollar. Okay? And it had to be reported that way so that people don't buy shares on US dollars that are not US dollars.
Yeah.
We wake up, if you remember, it was very fast to start dividing. To say now this is now divided by 200 when you were multiplying by 15 all of a sudden. People lost value.
Yeah. So look, this is not actually a new development in the history of
No,
money,
it's not.
right? So if you go back to antiquity, right, to the Roman Empire, they are profligate emperors who debased the currency. And in fact, a lot of historians will argue that one of the reasons why the Roman Empire collapsed
Yeah.
was because they debased the currency so much they were broke and they just couldn't run
The
empire.
economy.
And this is, so you've got Hungary, you've got Argentina. Today we speak of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency.
Yeah.
They're running, they've got, $33 trillion plus
Yeah.
in debt. Next year, at the rate that they're spending,
Yeah.
the biggest line item on their national accounts is going to be interest. So do fiat currencies anywhere in the world have a future? Or maybe the future is Bitcoin or these other things, because it seems like politicians across the globe, can't be trusted with issuing currency.
So one has to read the book by Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump, Why the A's and B's Work for the C's and D's, which talks about the difference between business, the guys working in government, we call them, and part of what's there is the fact that the inflation is a way of
Wealth transfer.
It's wealth transfer. So it's very deliberate. Okay, so like you're saying, it's being repeated all over again, debasing and all this. But if you look about fiat or the currency from there, that's where we're saying the confidence and the trust. That's why the Bitcoin is coming, and people want it to be as private as much so that it doesn't.
Because government doesn't have its hands in there.
Yes, because they do things that transfer wealth. Okay, so if you imagine you're saying you owe this much, you debase or you stop this currency, all of a sudden it comes to zero.
Yeah, look, the producer here has very subtly hinted that we've done more than an hour. We've exhausted our time. It's been really good. I thank you so much for doing this, Anesu. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Very interesting.
We will certainly continue off camera. Thank you for joining us. We're here for 3 days, and we're going to have a bunch of these conversations, and we hope you enjoy them. We welcome your feedback. Otherwise, cheers.
Even with my water.